Did you ever hear that expression, here's your sign? Well, here's my sign that I've not been using the sawmill often enough. Look at what my lovely gray squirrels have done. They've chewed through my beautiful Woodland Mills sawmill cover. I don't know if you all recall, but this is not the first time the sawmill has been attacked by squirrels. I did a video, I believe, a year ago where I had to replace that. That is not original. It's a metal gas cap. The squirrels actually chewed right through the plastic one. And now they've ruined a cover. Country living. Well, at least there weren't any bird or rodent nests in there. May need a little adjustment there, but that's why you check. Hey everybody, John here. Welcome back to Catbird Hill. So, it's been a long time since I did a sawmill video, and there's a really good reason for that. It's been a long time since I've had this sawmill running, as you can probably tell from the earlier part of the video where I revealed the fact that rodents had taken up residence inside the cover of the sawmill and ate through it. That's something just we deal with all the time here. You know, they're always eating something. And the fact that the mill is kind of covered in, some of the debris left over from winter. Here it is, middle of June, and actually today it is 90 degrees here in southeastern Pennsylvania, and we've got temperatures in the mid to upper 90s predicted over the next 4 or 5 days. Challenging weather for sawmilling, but I've got to get to a lot of logs that have been piling up, and some really special logs which we will be sawing here today. So you saw me going through some procedures which are kind of quick and easy things to check on your sawmill. You saw me running a string from the very first bunk down to the opposite end of the mill on a diagonal, and the idea there is just to make sure that all of these bunks are on the same level. So I ran it on one diagonal and then I ran it on another. Everything looked really nice. I have a jig here somewhere, a 2-inch block of what I did with it, but it's a 2-inch thick piece of oak. It's perfectly consistent, 2 inches along its length, and I put that on each bunk, and then I moved the saw head down at that height, checking each bunk. And as you saw, I was a little bit off, about probably a 32nd of an inch off on the next bunk, and actually the third bunk as well. So what I did is I made some adjustments here on the mill using the cable system back here, which positions the saw head up and down, and we got all that consistent all the way down. A 32nd of an inch, probably most people wouldn't worry about that. It's rough sawn lumber. It's going to shrink, it's going to change, it's eventually going to be milled into finished product. But it's one of those things that kind of bothers me if it's not as perfect as I can get it from the get-go. I like to get that right. So I actually have fired up the engine here a couple of times, actually probably 3 times since I last ran the mill, just to run the engine, keep the fluids moving, get the oil moving in there. Fortunately, the times that I fired it up, it kicked right over with no problems. I use ethanol-free fuel. I have windshield washer fluid in the lubricant tank here, which I really don't need now because it's hot weather, but I kept that in there over the winter so the liquid wouldn't freeze, the lubricating liquid. Everything seems to be working really well. So stay tuned. We're going to load up the first of 2 very special logs, wood that I've never ever milled in my life, let alone here on Catbird Hill. So stay tuned. let's see how we're doing here with our accuracy. That's pretty good. Better than government work. So what are we cutting here? I said earlier, this is something I've never cut for lumber, and certainly have never used the sawmill for this. This is actually Western red cedar. Botanical name is Thuya plicata, and I'll put a link to a description of this tree. So we were very fortunate that when we moved in here, we had the benefit of the previous owner planting a number of these trees, which, as many of you know, grow to be absolutely giant trees in the Pacific Northwest. That's the very best environment for these trees to grow. But what you're looking at here, if you kind of look past the pine trees here, these are examples of how Western red cedar grows here in the Mid-Atlantic area. It does not really become a big tree. It's typically, if you can get it, they're very, very hard to get in the nursery trade now. They're very hard to find. But it looks like our Eastern arborvitae. The one thing I notice is that when I scratch the needles and sniff, it smells like incense. Sometimes it's known as incense cedar, one of the many common names. But if we can sneak in here, you can see that the trunks of this tree growing here on our property are not large at all. They're probably, you know, these are probably only about a foot wide at the base. This one might be a little bit bigger. But on the West Coast, where the environment is cooler, they thrive. They get absolutely massive. So I cut down 2 of these on our property that were literally planted right next to the house. You know, the stumps are gone, so you really can't see exactly where they were, but they were planted probably back in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. They got pretty big. They got to probably about 75 or 80 feet tall. And this is one of them. This is the trunk of one of the 2 that I took down. About 15 inches in diameter here. This was the butt end of the tree. They typically grow nice and straight. You can see that's a nice straight log there. And the one that I just milled that you saw was very similar in size, almost identical, 15-ish inches and about 8.5 feet long. So I was very fortunate to get some pretty good pieces of lumber out of that relatively little log. We got 2 1x6s and 2 1x8s, and then a really nice 6x6 post or beam, which I already have a plan for how I'm going to be using this. But as a lot of you probably know, Western red cedar is unbelievably insect and rot resistant. It's very expensive when you buy it in the lumber yard, if you can find it. And the other thing that is a wonderful advantage here, we're actually right in front of this one here. The deer do not browse on it at all. There's something about that incensey scent to the foliage when it's crushed, or if they were trying to browse it, you know, chew it or whatever, maul it up. There's something, apparently, from what wildlife experts have told me, is that incense scent is very offensive to them. So we actually have quite a few about this size, maybe, you know, 50 feet, 55 feet or so, that are thriving. They're doing really well. But in our hot, humid environment, they're just not going to get to the size they are out on the West Coast. But I'm really fortunate to have them. I can still get them through some of my contacts in the nursery trade. Rarely, maybe every few years they come up, and, you know, one of my friends will save me a couple. And so we have planted several that are, you know, maybe 6-8 feet tall, that we are going to permanently locate here on the property to kind of fill in. They make a wonderful screen, but they make great lumber. And oh my gosh, I wish you guys could smell this. It is like perfume to me. Freshly cut Western red cedar. I didn't bother doing the bucket, you know, water spill. I don't think you really need to. I think you can get an appreciation of the pinkish reddish tone to that wood. This is one of the flitches that came off. I think you can probably see, you know, some of that really interesting color. You know, it's not a structural wood. It's typically, you know, would be used for siding, cedar chests, things like that. When you do leave it in a beam or post form like this, I think it's great. It works really well in the ground, very rot resistant. I typically wouldn't be using cedar posts or beams anything smaller than a 6x6. It is going to move and check when you begin to dimension it down from a 6x6. So anyhow, thanks a lot for watching technically, I guess it's the first sawmilling video of 2024, which is kind of embarrassing. Here it is, mid-June. And who in heaven's name picked today to do sawmilling? It's about 92 degrees, but you take it when you can get it. And what I mean by that is time. So I had some time this afternoon from work and from household chores, so I want to get out here and do some milling. Thanks a lot for watching. We really appreciate all the support. Channel's continuing to grow, and I promise I will be getting more sawmill videos going. As you can see, we've got some really big boys over here in the 30-inch range, and that's silver maple. So that's going to be a blast milling that up along with some mystery wood. That's coming up as well. So until next time, John here from Catbird Hill. Thanks again for watching. Take care.